typical Cape weather. What do I mean by typical? Well, we had sunshine yesterday and we have rain today. It's clear to me that this is the kind of weather we're supposed to have. Especially that's what I'm hearing from the Cape Townians. Is everything like this? Can we understand what's going to happen by looking at the weather? Some people have been asking me, Willie, why are we studying in such great detail the book of Daniel, and I am going to be coming to the book of Revelation? It's because it's in these two books that I find that God reveals what's going to happen to those of us living in the last days, living in the end of time. I'm convinced, friends, that we are living in those times, and I'm going to show you that. You know, when Ezekiel was prophetic, or Isaiah, most of the prophecies they had was for that particular time period, giving the Israelites information. For example, Isaiah was predicting that Nebuchadnezzar would come and take Jerusalem and Judea, etc., and that it would fall under his dominion for 70 years. This information was given to them so that they could understand what was going to happen. Now, we don't have any particular prophets in our time now, but we have two books, Daniel and Revelation, particularly given for those living in the last days. And Jesus draws our attention in Matthew 24 to the understanding that what he's talking about in Matthew 24 is all about end time events. He's actually answering the question that the disciples asked him. In Matthew 24, the disciples turned to him and they said to him, "Tell us," they said, "when will this happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" They have a dual purpose here. Jesus had just mentioned that the walls of the temple were going to be destroyed. They ask, when is this going to happen? He tells them something about that. Then he also says, they also ask, what about your coming? He tells them about that. What about the signs in the end of time? He tells them about that. It's interesting that when we look at verse 14, Jesus says that the gospel will be taken to the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and that the end will then come. Then Jesus says this, verse 15, "So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand." Jesus is saying, I gave this information to Daniel so that those living in the future would understand what to expect. And remember that the book of Revelation is built on the prophecies of Daniel. I am going to show you this as we go on. In the book of Daniel, we have Babylon and we have Jerusalem. In the book of Revelation, we have Babylon and Jerusalem. And we have stories in the book of Daniel to help us to know, we who are living in the end, how we are to behave when the prophecies of Daniel actually come true. Do you know that the rabbis knew this? Now, a book that was written particularly by the rabbis to try and govern the lifestyle of the Jewish people was a book called the Talmud. And they had what they call the Talmudic law. Now, it's interesting that on page 978, section 2, line 28, the rabbis say this. They actually placed a curse on the book of Daniel. They said, "May the bones of the hands and the bones of the fingers decay and decompose of him who turns the pages of the book of Daniel to find out the time of Daniel, especially Daniel 9 verse 24 through 227, and may his memory rot from off the face of the earth forever." You see, they knew that if the Jewish people studied the book of Daniel, they would have known that Jesus was coming. They would have known the signs. Dear friends, if we study the book of Daniel and study the book of Revelation, we will have the signs we need. Jesus was confronted by the Pharisees in Matthew chapter 16. They came to him and they said to him, give us a sign, show us something from heaven. And Jesus responds in verse 2 by saying, when evening comes, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, today it will be stormy, for the sky is red and overcast. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. It's so interesting that Jesus says we can, by looking at the things happening around us, almost dictate what's going to happen, especially with the things around us. But yet when it comes to the events that are going to take place in the closing of this world, we fail to see it. Last of all, Jesus says in the book of Hosea, chapter 4, my people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. And do you know that the people who God blamed was the ministers, the priests? They were supposed to warn the people, but they somehow gave them false prophecies, gave them false information. Dear friends, we have a lot of people telling us things that are going to happen. But how can we test the validity or the truthfulness of their predictions? I want to make it very clear to you. If it's not according to Daniel and according to the book of Revelation, then there is no truth in their prophecy. I'm going to be showing you this more and more as we study. May God help you to make the Word of God, may you hide His Word in your heart so that you will not fall in the future, but that you will make the right decision. May God bless you today.